Whether you like it or not, sport is a game of opinions. And in most sports, one opinion matters way more than anyone else's. Your coaches. They have the final say as to whether you make the squad, a part of the starting team, or how many minutes you play. And we all know that opinion is rarely ever based purely on facts. Politics and favoritism often dictates who gets on the pitch, court, or track. There are athletes who, despite being one of the worst technically in the squad, will always be picked. Is this fair? No. But this is how sport operates. So what can you do to change your fortunes? How can you make yourself undroppable? How can you give your coach no choice but to play you? Well, I'm going to reveal the 4 things that any athlete must do to improve their relationship with their coach and therefore maximize their chances of playing. If you do these things consistently and with patience, your situation will change. It won't happen overnight, but I guarantee that with time, you will get back into the coach's good books and get your career back on track. So let's get started. So when I was 13, I played for the Reading district team, the highest level of schools football in the UK. And I'll admit it, I was one of the worst in the squad. We had a lot of Reading Academy players and even some academy players from London-based Premier League teams. And the manager was scary, an Irish guy who gave serious Roy Keane vibes. When he spoke, you listened. And you didn't even want to speak with him. He was just really intimidating.
Oh, really? No?
But during the summer holidays after my first season of playing in this team, I joined my local gym to get fit for the new season. And the first time I go there, I go over to the treadmills, and guess who's just getting off one? That manager. I almost shit myself and just wanted to make a beeline, but for whatever reason, I just carried on walking up to him and said, "Hi boss, how's it going?" He clocked me and said, Sam, good to see you're not sleeping in during the holidays." I was just standing there unsure of what to say, so I just said, "Any tips on what should work on over the summer?" And he said, "I'm glad you actually asked. Most players don't." And then he just gave me some good advice. And that was it. I didn't see him again in the gym for the whole summer. And then the next time I saw him was the first pre-season training session about 4 weeks later. And we had our first training session and he did a briefing for his expectations for the season ahead. And towards the end, he said, "This season, your captain is Anton," who at the time was playing for Chelsea Academy. And then he said, "Your vice captain is Sam." And I remember everyone's heads just turning and everyone's faces like, this guy. And that season I was a starter and the captain for quite a few games because there were times that the actual captain couldn't play because of his Chelsea games. So the point here is that above anything else, coaches just want to see professionalism. This doesn't mean being a brown nose, but just having the confidence to talk to your coach like an actual adult, even if you're a child. Getting out of the mindset of, look at me, look what I can do, and instead asking, what should I do? This coach, one, thought I was brave because I actually went and spoke to him when most other players were just trying to avoid eye contact with him at all costs. And 2, he thought I was incredibly serious about my game because I was in a gym at 7 a.m. during the summer holidays when most other kids would be sleeping in until midday. So even though I was one of the worst players in that squad, he believed that there was something about me that made me dependable. And that's what any coach in sport wants, players they can count on. That's it. And this then ties into the next tip, which is to show that you're actually coachable. So think about the role of a coach for a minute. They spend way more time than actual athletes on the game. Whether it's football, basketball, baseball, volleyball, cricket, whatever big team sport there is, the coaches are literally the first in and the last out of the facility every single day. Some spend so much time inside the facilities that teams keep beds and sleeping rooms in their offices. Coaches live and breathe the sport way more than the actual athletes themselves. A 16-hour day is the norm. Every single waking moment is spent obsessing. In their minds, they see exactly how they want their team to play. Every tactic, every play, every formation is permanently etched into their brain. And all they want is their players to execute that vision. But the amount of players who don't listen, who keep making the same mistakes despite being told 100 times over, that just plain pisses coaches off. There is no better way to destroy your chances of playing if you show signs of being uncoachable. It doesn't matter how good you are technically, how much natural talent you have. If you cannot follow instructions, then you're toast. You need to show you're willing to listen to feedback and take criticism on a daily basis, and that you're actually then able to put that into practice to grow your game. That's why there are a lot of average players who always seem to get picked and play the vast majority of games and minutes, because they take everything on board. They help the coach's vision actually come to life. And it's why really talented players who could have become world beaters just have careers that fizzle out because they don't listen. Even if you disagree with their playing style or their training methods, that's tough because they're the person who is going to dictate whether you play or not. Simple as that. Is it fair? No, but again, sport is not fair. So put yourself in your coach's shoes for a second. If they've spent hundreds of hours refining their systems or tactics and you do the complete opposite of what they actually want to see, how's that going to make them feel about you? They're human. They'll feel disrespected, annoyed, or even humiliated by you. But if you do what they want on a consistent basis and learn from their instructions and guidance, they'll love you. All coaches want two things: one, to win, and two, for their players to actually fulfill their potential. And for the latter, they will have specific plans and ideas about how that comes to life for you. And if you don't get on board with that, you're toast. Simple as that. So a big shift any athlete in any sport needs to make is one in which they position themselves to serve. You are there to provide a service to your coach, and the more you show yourself to do that, the more your coach will use that service and actually play you. And this itself ties into the next point, which is to become a chameleon. Sports commentators occasionally say there are some players that are just a coach's dream. But what do they actually mean by this? Well, it just means they're adaptable. Someone like James Milner, who throughout his career has slotted into almost every single position on a football pitch. But people will turn around and say, well, who wants to be a James Milner though? Well, people who want to win the Champions League and 3 Premier League titles, as well as play in the Premier League over 600 times. That too. The more versatile you are, the more uses your coach has for you. If you're a one-trick pony and can only play in a certain system, then you're screwed, unless your coach decides to play that system. And that's what really annoys me about a lot of sports fans. They'll say, oh, he's such a great player in the right system. The only right system is the one your coach is playing. You have to grow comfortable with the fact that you are nothing but a chess piece. And some days your coach may want to use you as a bishop, other days a knight, and other days a king. But if you just shrug and say, oh, well, I'm only ever the queen, well, you're staying in the box and not getting on the chessboard. Again, is this fair? No, but as we've said, sport is not fair. So even if you hate the system or the role that your coach wants you to perform, you always have two choices. Either adapt to that system or don't. But you tell me which one of those choices is going to lead to more game time. Versatility is one of the most underrated things any athlete in any sport needs to grow comfortable with developing. It's what allows for longevity in any sport. Think about the amount of greats who have had to adjust their game due to getting older, but also because of the way that their sport is typically played. Every 5 to 10 years, there's often dramatic changes in terms of what actually leads to success and winning in a sport. So it's actually for the benefit of your career to remain as consistently open to new ideas, new approaches, and new ways of playing and performing. Even those who are the best in the world in their sport do this. Tiger Woods has changed his swing like 4 or 5 times in his career. LeBron James has gone from explosive small forward to master point guard, and Cristiano Ronaldo went from electrifying winger to deadly poacher in the box. Being a chameleon is the key to a career in sport that is marked by as much game time as possible and as much chance of success as possible. But what happens if you do this but still don't get noticed or the recognition that you feel that you deserve from your coach? Well, this is where we've got to talk about the last tip. And for this one, let's chat about the England legend David Beckham. In January 2007, Beckham announced that he would not renew his Real Madrid contract and would instead move to LA Galaxy. This very public and shocking decision immediately caused Beckham to be frozen out at Madrid, with the then head coach Fabio Capello saying that Beckham had played his last game for the club. And for the next month, Beckham was forced to train alone away from the rest of the first team. But he did not complain. He trained harder than ever, and with Madrid struggling, Capello backtracked on his earlier statement and called Beckham back for a match against Real Sociedad. And in that game, he scored a trademark free kick to help his team win 2-1. Beckham would then go on to become one of the most instrumental members of the squad as Madrid claimed their first league title in 4 years. And so what's the point here? Well, for any athlete struggling to consistently make the team, quite simply, you need to be so good they can't ignore you. Beckham could have sulked, moaned, and given up after being told he'll never play for the team again. But instead, he got to work. He still controlled his effort, his work rate, and his intensity to compete. And after a month of still grinding, it was apparent he wasn't going away quietly, and that it was stupid of Capello to not involve this world-class player. So the thing that you control as an athlete is to always show up as the best trainer every single day. And it may take weeks, maybe even a few months, but if you keep banging on the door with your ability, your fitness, and your understanding of tactics and systems, your coach has no choice but to play you. You need to be the one fully sprinting for every ball or every play on a Friday when there's a game the next day and everyone else is taking it lightly. You need to be the first one to training and the last one to leave. You need to show up to the practice facility on days off. Because when you're not playing as much as you'd like, these are the only things that you keep 100% control of. And the second you slack off on any of this, you've proved your coach right. Any good coach will realize when they've made a stupid mistake. And it is ultimately in your hands in terms of how you behave and show up to training every single day, every gym session, and every team meeting to make them aware of this mistake. If you're the best trainer, the best listener, the best implementer of tactics and plays, you won't go unnoticed. You just have to trust the process, and the results you're looking for will take care of themselves. But how do you keep this up for weeks and months on end without getting frustrated or annoyed? Well, you're going to need some mental toughness. And to start building this, you should watch this video next.